The smart money is on the underdogs at the West Coast Classic. A Games veteran continues to cash in on the men's side, and there's a lot of green going around for the teams. In Asia, the Russians continue to rule, but a South Korean is making a charge in the women's division. We recap day 2 of the final weekend of semifinals next on Game Central. Hi everybody, welcome to a semifinals edition of Game Central. Sean Woodland and Annie Sakamoto wrapping up day 2 of the final weekend of semifinal competition for the West Coast Classic and the CrossFit Asia Invitational. A lot of athletes going to bed right now thinking about what they need to do to get themselves into the games or hang on to a qualifying spot. What's going through their heads right now?
Well, you can assume, Sean, that all of these athletes are physically really sore at this point. But that's one of those things, 3, 2, 1, go. You can definitely get past that. For me, it was always, getting the psych up on that third and final day. Your adrenaline is tapped, your nerves are tapped. But this is it. You have one day. For a lot of these athletes, it's just 2 events left, and you just have to lay it all out there at this point.
Day 2 of individual competition is presented by U.S. Army. What's your warrior? Find out more by visiting goarmy.com. Joel Godett and Tommy Marquez had the call on day 2 at the West Coast Classic, and they have more on a very busy day for the men.
If you just watched day 1 of the West Coast Classic out here in Vegas and you paid no attention on day 2, Tommy Marquez, you would look at the leaderboard on the men's side and go, who put all of these names in a Yahtzee cup?
Well, moving day certainly lived up to its billing with 300 points on the table. We saw a ton of shuffling on the leaderboard. Not a single athlete inside the top 5 after day 1 managed to hold on to the same exact placing going into day 2. So a ton of movement and a ton of excitement as a result.
Cole Sager, though, has been the constant, always at the top of the leaderboard and almost always in the top 5.
Yeah, and it started with Cole Sager winning a sprint to the finish to start the ruck and start his day with another event win after closing with an event win on day 1 last night as well. Mr. Consistency so far holds on to another strong performance in the Triple G Chipper, chasing down some well-known athletes, and he manages to put the best time in the final heat to close out the day on the regional finale from 2017. And it's just a trio of top finishes from Cole Sager to put him atop the leaderboard. And Noah Ohlsen came out swinging on the Triple G Chipper. It was the best finish for his heat. Wasn't the best time overall, but his aggressive pacing paid off big time in another top performance to keep him inside the top 5. He's been there all weekend long. And then one of the biggest movers on day number 2 was Brandon Luckett, starting with a finish outside of the top 20 to start day number 1, and he has been lights out since. 3 top 10 finishes on day number 2, taking full advantage of those 300 points up for grabs on moving day, and he closes on a high note with an event win to close things out on the D-ball in that regional event finale from 2017.
And Brandon Luckett has been quite open. This is his last go-around. He will retire for the 2nd time in his career at the end of this season, so to get back to the games would be ever so sweet. You look above the red line, those people have tickets to the games. Above the blue line to the last chance online qualifier, but the most impressive name right now is just below in 9th place, Spencer Panchik.
Spencer made a huge move going into the final 2 events of today. He was in 20th place, moves all the way up into 9th. He's just 3 points back of the last chance qualifier spot that Matt DeLugos holds on to in 8th. Dallin Pepper, Brandon Luckett, tied in points overall, just 5 points ahead of Will Morad in 6th. So tight races across the board to close out day number 2.
So you look at what happened in day number 2, and now you look ahead to just 2 events. We had 3 today, but just 2 events on Sunday, and you start thinking, what comes next? It could be very interesting. What do you think happens?
Well, I think the same thing we've seen all semifinal season long. Some close races to the finish, a little bit of heart rate, and that's what's really exciting about this format. We have clearly defined cut lines that adds a little bit of understanding and excitement to the fans who are watching at home and know what's at stake. And I think there's going to be a few new names like maybe Dallin Pepper holding on to a top 5 spot, and we could see some new stars in the making on day 3.
Listen, we're in Las Vegas. We have to make some sort of puns at some point along the line. We go into the final day on Sunday. What kind of chances are you going to take? How much luck are you going to wind up with? You can go into the bag and grab any of those cliches you want. It is going to be very interesting come Sunday here at the West Coast Classic.
Thank you, Joel and Tommy. Let's turn our attention to the women's side of things, and this is where we stand with 2 events remaining heading into Sunday. Bethany Shadburne and Carrie Pierce, they are cruising. They are well above the 400-point mark. Danielle Brandon, Reagan Huckabee, and Danny Spiegel still have work to do. 48 points separate third from 7th place. And when it comes to that underdog crew, they're all in the top 3. Bethany Shadburne probably gets the least amount of attention of those 3. I'm guessing that is going to change.
She deserves the most amount of attention after day 2, Sean. She backed up a solid and super consistent day 1 by winning the ruck event, winning the 2nd event, and then taking 3rd place on the 3rd event. But it's not just the wins that were so impressive for me with Bethany Shadburne. It's the dominance that she showed on both of her wins. On the ruck event, she won by almost 1 minute and 30 seconds over the next athlete. And then she beat Carrie Pierce, of all people, on the Triple G chipper by 30 seconds. So a super solid day for Bethany Shadburne. Like you said, though, it's the whole underdog crew right now that occupies spots 1, 2, and 3. And that cannot be, emphasized enough that obviously Justin Kotler is doing something very right with his female athletes right now.
They are looking good. Sydney Wells, she didn't have the best day 1, but she certainly bounced back nicely today.
Right, and we can only assume maybe for Sydney it was a case of nerves on day 1. She doesn't have the in-person competition experience that her sister does, but she has a great day 2, all top 10 finishes. She's only 44 points behind Kelly Stone, who's in 8th place, and that's important right now because that is that final last chance qualifier spot. So if Sydney has a day 3 like her day 2, there's a strong chance that she will be in the last chance qualifier.
Let's go over to the team side of things, where the Invictus teams continue to do extremely well. They are sitting atop the overall leaderboard, led by Invictus at 413 points. Unconquerable just 3 points back of them. The Sea of Green, very happy with that. Blue City Athletics, they are above the 400-point mark, and it is Backcountry Black. They hang on to that 5th and final spot. They are 11 points up on the Ohio Brutes. And Invictus, it doesn't matter what year it is, they just churn out good teams.
Right, when you look at both of these teams, there is a tremendous amount of experience between the 2 teams, but only 3 points separating these 2 teams right now. The Invictus Games team has Games individual Eric Carmody and Jen Ryan, who's a longtime Games team member, and they were 2nd behind Mayhem in both the Worldwide Open and the qualifier when you look at the cross-continental comparison. And then Unconquerable has 4-time Games team Devin Kim, 2 past teams Games members in Taylor Ballack and Alex Bosenhard. So when you look at the 8 members that are representing the 2 different Invictus teams, it's not surprising that both of these teams sit on top of the leaderboard right now.
Team competition is sponsored by Ramwad. Improve your mobility and athletic performance with Ramwad. Visit ramwad.com for a free 7-day trial. It's been a lot of fun watching these repeat events at the West Coast Classic for the 2nd straight day to see where athletes are now as opposed to the first time we saw some of these events come out.
And definitely, as CrossFitters, we always want brand new events, but it's also really fun to see these events redone, both by athletes, like you're saying, Sean, redoing events that they've already done, smashing times that they've done in past years, but then also to see new faces, new names doing these same events, and often smashing times that were set, only a couple of years ago.
And there are some fun events coming up on the 3rd and final day of competition at the West Coast Classic. We're going to turn our attention now to the CrossFit Asia Invitational, where it is the same story as it was on day 1. The Russians continue to rule. The CrossFit Asia Invitational, one of the virtual competitions taking place this weekend. And day 1, the Russians were on top of the overall leaderboard. Day 2, the names have changed, but the flags really haven't.
Well, and actually on the women's leaderboard, the name is the same. It's just a different Svetlana that holds that top position. But then we have Seungyeon Choi, who has 2nd place in the women's race right now. And I'm just really curious to see, will she be able to hold on with 2 more events to go?
Day 2 of individual competition is presented by the U.S. Army. What's your warrior? Find out more by visiting goarmy.com. Let's take a look at where we stand for the men. After 4 events for the CrossFit Asia Invitational, it is Roman Khrennikov, who is now on top of the overall leaderboard with Stas Soledov. Alexander Elin is just 6 points back. On the women's side, as Annie said, it's Svetlana Kubyshkina who is now your overall leader, 360 points. Seungyeon Choi, she is now in a qualifying spot, but only 8 points separate her from Ayjan Zarasova for that second and final qualifying spot. And day 2 started off really well for Svetlana Kubyshkina.
It did, and this is a 30-year-old athlete who does not have a ton of major competition experience, but this is on the heels of her best open finish thus far. She was 79th this year. She has 2 event wins so far in event 1 and in event 3, and so right now this semifinals is just hers to hang on to. She has 2 more events, and looking at what she's done so far, I think she can do it.
It's really the same story for the men. Roman Khrennikov, he was on the outside looking in to start day 2, but he got off to a great start.
Right, and this is an athlete that we've been wanting to see compete live at the games since he won the 2018 regionals. And he did compete at the games last year, but that was virtually. He was 13th place. And Khrennikov has definitely been kind of the leading Russian CrossFit athlete for a few years now. So it would be great to see him qualify and actually be able to compete live in person.
Things have changed for the men and the women as far as the overall leaderboard is concerned, but on the team side, nothing has changed. The Kolesnikov team and Team Dubai, they are just running away with this competition. Kolesnikov, they are 80 points clear of CrossFit Muharraq, and Team Dubai, they are 55 points clear. And again, you look at the Kolesnikov team and what they've been able to do, 3 wins, and their scores that they are putting up are really good.
Definitely, Sean. And this is, they have a near perfect 2 days of competition thus far. They're only missing 5 points from what would be a perfect score. Super impressive from a team that was 3rd worldwide in the Open. Right now, they're 25 points up on Team Dubai, which is a team that we also thought would be really competitive, and obviously they are, but to be leading that team right now by 25 points, super impressive.
Team competition is sponsored by Ramwad. Improve your mobility and athletic performance with Ramwad. Visit ramwad.com for a free 7-day trial. What are you going to be watching on the final day of competition at the CrossFit Asia Invitational?
I think, again, it's really who can back up a solid 2 days of competition and kind of finish it out. Again, it's one thing to have those first 2 days. By day 2, you're a little bit sore, you're a little bit tired, but who can bring it on that 3rd and final day? Who wants it? Who is hungry enough to just suffer on those last 2 events and punch their ticket?
Yeah, 2 spots up for grabs to the CrossFit Games at the CrossFit Asia Invitational. And we are creeping closer to the CrossFit Games in Madison, Wisconsin, and tickets are still on sale if you want to be there in person. Head to games.crossfit.com. That is going to do it for us. Remember, we will have full coverage of the 3rd and final day of this 4th semifinal weekend on Sunday. So keep checking out the CrossFit Games YouTube channel and the CrossFit Games Facebook page for the latest on the West Coast Classic, the CrossFit Asia Invitational, and the Atlas Games. For Annie Sakamoto, I'm Sean Woodland. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.